So January 2023, Wizards of the Coast leaked a draft of a new OGL that would have allowed them to retroactively claim royalties on content built on systems they've made open since the year 2000, right? Content created by independent publishers, content created by small studios, one-person operations, people who had spent years building products the community depended on, right? And all of it potentially subject to a license change decided by a corporation, right? That had acquired D&D as a brand asset, right? So the backlash was immediate and massive. If you guys remember this, in 2023, Wizards of the Coast eventually backed down. They released the core rules under Creative Commons. They said the right things, right? But something had already changed. The question that had always been lurking finally got asked out loud. Why are we dependent on a corporation, for permission to play our game? I ask that question all the time, and so we're going to talk about that today. So welcome back, you guys, and welcome to the final episode of our collab series with Eric Tenkar, from Tenkar's Tavern. 8 weeks, 8 pain points, 2 perspectives, obviously. Tenkar has been covering the BX angle. I've been covering the 1E angle. We're both doing old school. Today we're talking about the pain point that's less about game design and more about who owns the hobby. And the OGL crisis didn't create the OSR, right? But it sent more people toward it than anything else in the last 20 years. And if you're one of those people still figuring out, where to land, this video is for you. So let's talk a little bit about. Here's what January 2023 clarified for a lot of people who had been playing 5e for years and hadn't thought, about this question. D&D is a product, right? It belongs to Hasbro. Wizards of the Coast is a subsidiary of Hasbro, right? The game you've been playing, the content that you've been consuming, the creative ecosystem built around it, all of it exists at a pleasure of a, publicly traded company, whose, primary obligation is to shareholders, not players. It's been pretty obvious. And that's not a conspiracy theory. That's just what it is. And most people knew it on some level. But the OGL draft made it visceral. People freaked, and it showed exactly what the relationship was. They don't give a crap, right? So the community was a customer base, and the license was a tool of market control, right? And that's hard for people like us to consume, right? That's hard for us. That's a hard pill to swallow. It's a reality, though. So now, to be fair, Wizards of the Coast did reverse it, right? They reversed course. The damage to individual publishers who had already started planning for a post-OGL world was real. But the immediate crisis passed, right? And the CC license, right? Creative, they issued for the SRD, right? And is generally more protective than what existed before. Right, but the players who asked, why are we dependent on a corporation for this to, didn't unask the question, right? They started looking for alternatives, and the OSR was right there. So what did Gygax actually build, right? Here's the irony that I think deserves to be said clearly, because I don't think it gets said enough, right? Gary Gygax did not design AD&D to be a product ecosystem, right? He designed it to be a game, right? And to framework for individual GMs to build their own worlds, right? And the preface of the DMG opens with this, right? And it says that what follows herein is strictly for the eyes of you, the campaign referee. As a creator and ultimate authority of your respective game, and I take that to heart, right? This world is written as one dungeon master equal to another, right? There may be, right, he says, but they are not from on high as respects your game, right? As respects your game. Not from on high, right? You know, one DM to another. The authority in your game is you, right? The book is a tool. Gygax is writing it as a peer, not a licensor, right? You know, and sure, there's legal stuff and, you know, things in the past and all that. You know, we can get into that too. You know, and then there's just a few lines later that he says, you know, when you build your campaign, you will tailor it to suit your personal tastes, right? In the heat of play, it will slowly evolve into a compound of your own personality, he says, and those of your better participants a superior alloy, right? So your campaign, your personality, your alloy, the game Gygax, you know, he kind of does, you know, he designed was fundamentally a creative act by the DM, right? Using his system as a starting point, right? And he says outright, you know, no two campaigns will ever be the same, right? So, and then at the end of the preface, you know, this is the line I keep, you know, kind of coming back to. Only you can construct the masterpiece, you know, from it. Your personal, he says, campaign will, you know, which will bring hundreds of hours of fun and excitement, you know, to many eager players, right? So only you, he says, right? The DM, not TSR, not Wizards of the Coast, not Hasbro. The masterpiece belongs to the person who builds it. So let's talk about the OSR ecosystem, right? So what is this? It actually looks like, what does it look like as an alternative, right? You know, because I think a lot of people who are angry with Wizards of the Coast, including myself, still don't know what they're walking into, right? OSR is not a game. It's a publishing ecosystem built around old school design philosophy, right? And almost all of it is independent, right? So you got like Necrotic Gnome, right? You got Free League Publishing, you got Goodman Games, you got all those out there, just to name a few, right? You know, and then there are dozens of smaller, you know, publishers out there, you know, one-person operations, you know, publishing Zines, you know, think of Fight On Magazine. You got modules. Think of Advanced Fantasy Game. You think of Dark Wizard Games. Think of Chris's Inner City Games, right? You know, and you know, all these system hacks out there, right? Who live in a space that Wizards of the Coast OGL drama barely even touched, right? So because their games don't use 5e as a foundation, right? They're building on older systems, right? On house rules, on the principle Gygax articulated in 1979, right? The written material is your foundation and inspiration, right? Build something from it. That's a fundamentally different relationship to the hobby than buying a product from Hasbro. And you know what? I have made, ever since they said that thing about the, I'm going to say it, about the old man in the basement, I vowed that I would never buy another product from Wizards of the Coast. And you know, that is not hurt relationships to friends of mine, but you know what? I will buy it from them personally instead of giving them any money to Wizards of the Coast. It just can't do it. Can't stomach it. You're never getting my money again. So, you know, that's another video, you know, but, you know, I want to make a specific case for first edition AD&D in this context, because it's not just the oldest available option, right? It's philosophy, you know, philosophically, the most honest, right? You know, the DMG is explicit that AD&D is not a simulation. It's not trying to be realistic, right? It's first and foremost a game for the fun and enjoyment of those who seek to use imagination and creativity. And then those who desire to create and populate imaginary worlds with larger than life heroes and villains who seek relaxation, right? I do, with a fascinating game, right? And who generally, right, believe games should be fun, right? Not work, will hopefully find this system to their taste, right? So fun, not work. That is what Gygax the explicit design goal was, right? You know, and I say this, a lot of people will say, well, why don't you buy this? Why don't you buy that? Why don't you buy this? I'm like, I have the game. I have the game. The 1E rulebooks for you, if you don't have the game, right, are available, right? You know, the PDFs are on drive-through if you want to get them, you know, and the originals scanned and presented and, you know, read OCR and all that stuff with Gygax words intact. Thankfully, I don't have to buy them because I own physical copies and I have for years. But if you don't, go on drive-through and check it and you get them. It's where you and if you're a PDF lover, do it. Do it. You can run a complete campaign, right, from those books and never spend another dollar, you know, after you purchase those PDFs. You can modify them freely for your own table. Gygax encouraged it. Gygax encouraged to create modules and create adventures right out of your mind from inspiration of movies and, you know, things that you've done in life or, you know, just your imagination, right? You know, and the creative ecosystem built around 1E is enormous, right? The OSR has been producing products and supplements for old school play for 20 years. Go on to Dragon's Foot, you know, go to, you know, Osric, you know, the Dungeon Crawl Classic scene, you know, don't get official stuff. It's all out there. You have these smaller publishers that are doing awesome things. You know, some of the Greyhawk Online and Cannon Fire. There's so many adventures on there if you want to pick up something that's already written, right? So, the community questions that I have, right? Here's the final thing I want to say, and it's not about rules or design. You know, it's about what kind of community you want to be a part of, right? So, 5e's community is enormous, and that's awesome for those people that are playing 5e. That's generally valuable, right? You know, there are millions of players. There are thousands of content creators. There are massive infrastructure of actual play shows, podcasts, and online games, and etc. You know, if you want to learn 5e, there are more resources that you can consume in a lifetime, right? You know, but it's a community organized around a product, and when something comes out that you have to get, you got to pay. You know, it is what it is. You know what I'm talking about. New edition, new license, new corporate property. You know, think of when 5.5 came out or whatever they're calling it. You know, and yeah. Anyways, that's what happened to 4th edition too. Remember all the products, and you needed every single last thing of it. Well, I got the game already. I have it. You know, and it'll happen again because Hasbro needs 5e to continue generating revenue. Right? This is not going to generate them revenue. This is my game. I'm in control of it now. The OSR community is organized around a philosophy. It doesn't have a product manager. It doesn't have a roadmap. It has DMs who read the old books, run their own campaigns, share what they learn, and build on each other's work. The game that Gygax designed in 1979 and before. You know, a compound of your personality is those of your better participants, he said, right? A superior alloy, right? That community doesn't need Wizards of the Coast's permission, right? It never did. And you know, like for the module that I'm running a module at a con here soon, right? And it's got Greyhawk content in it, and I'm gonna write it on paper, and I'm gonna run it, and it's my own, and I don't. You know what I mean? I can share it with my buddies and all that stuff. It's mine. Even though it's using Grumpsh and St. Cuthbert's name and all that other stuff, I don't care. It's mine, right? That's all I got to say. Anyways, Tenkar is wrapping up this series channel right now from the BX angle. I'd love to hear what he's going to say. And his perspective on the OGL crisis and the OSR ecosystem is worth hearing. So because, you know, Tenkar has been around in this community longer than most, right? He's watched the OSR grow, been a part of it. So go over and check out his video. And the link will be obviously just like it's always been down here in the description of the video. So, you know, check out his read, you know. We did 8 episodes, 8 pain points, Thanks for being here every single Monday. You know, the OGL crisis did not create the problems in 5e we've been talking about for 8 weeks. It just made the corporate relationship visible in a way that is hard to ignore. The OSR in 1E specifically represents a different answer to the question of what the hobby is for. Not a product to be consumed, but a creative act to be performed. Not a community organized around a brand, but a community organized around a philosophy. That's what the OSR is. Gygax wrote the DMG to one DM equal to another. He designed a game that the masterpiece belongs to a person who builds it. That's still true today, and it always will be true. The books are still there and here. The game is still here, and the game is there. You don't need permission to play it. So you guys drop a comment. Were you one of the people that found the OSR because of the OGL crisis? Were you one of the people that were in the saw that OGL come out and freaked out, and were pissed? Are you an old man in the basement, old white guy in the basement? Well, let's talk. Subscribe. We've got a lot more of this to come, right? And the link in Tenkar's episode is down there, so check it out. All right, you guys, I'll see you around. God bless. Keep playing. Remember, these are your books. Keep playing AD&D. Love you guys. Bye-bye.